So this brings us on to the topic of inner child work and how to communicate with the inner child. Welcome to our Wu Wei Wisdom Life Lessons series. In each episode, we answer your questions, reveal the powerful life lesson, and offer you lots of practical tips and advice to help you live in balance, harmony, and flow. So the question or the issue is, I'm very familiar with my inner child and the childhood event that left my inner child feeling the way both she and I do. My father was tragically killed in an accident when I was very young. Now as an adult, I want to know, how do I actually begin to work on my inner child issues? Do I speak to my inner child through my mind, almost like a parent to a child? I'm thinking it's self-talk that's needed. Is this correct?
Well, thank you. That's a great question, and I'm very sorry to hear about the early death of your father. It happened to me as well. My father died when I was 10, so I understand that this causes a really powerful eruption in your emotions at a very tender age. And so you ask, how do I speak to my inner child? And what I would say is listen to your inner child talking to you. So your inner child will talk to you in whatever way. It's normally through what we call self-talk. But that I know for some people is slightly different. So don't compare yourself with anyone else. The most important thing is, first of all, before you speak to the child, is to listen to the child. Can I just repeat that for everyone else? Before you open up a conversation with that part of your mind that we're labeling the inner child, remember, if you're not sure, go back to the other videos, that part of your mind that's almost like frozen because of a circumstance or incidents that happened it couldn't deal with. So what it's basically done is frozen and locked down. So first thing we have to do is to communicate with that part of the mind. And just for a label, we call it the inner child. First thing, listen. Listen to what the inner child is telling you. And address those facts that she or he is telling you. So she will say things like, or he will say, it's not fair. It shouldn't have happened to me. What would have happened to me if that thing didn't happen or that didn't happen? And you have to address all of these individual incidences. Now, at the beginning, you may say, oh my goodness, there are hundreds of them, but you'll be surprised. As you start to listen, you'll see, what's that saying about all roads lead to Rome? They will all come down to one or two or three major core issues that you have to deal with your inner child. I can't emphasize how important this is, to listen, to communicate, to actually get that deep connection with her and listen to what she's saying, because she's stuck. She's stuck. She doesn't know how to deal with this, and that's when you can go and help.
Yeah. So when you say listen, how do we have to kind of create the right environment for us to listen? I mean, do you mean do a quiet meditation, go out for a walk, and just have an inner dialogue with yourself, or I mean, what can people do to listen? It's such a good question, because there's no direct answer, you see. So you will listen to something and say, well, that doesn't work for me, or that doesn't happen to me. And that's true, because everybody's mind works in different ways. It normally comes in the form of a self-talk. Yeah.
Normally, the inner child is quite vocal, but not always. Not always. So for a lot of my clients, the inner child will shut themselves out and they'll kind of moan and grumble, and they won't actually tell you what the issue is. And even if they're grumbling, you've got to find a dialogue, and I'm just going to suggest something here. This wouldn't suit everyone, but you just find a dialogue and you say, "What's the matter, darling? Do you want to speak to me? I can hear you grumbling, but I can't understand what you're grumbling about." And then she or he will say, "Well, it's not fair." "Oh, so what's not fair?" And they'll normally start off with, "It's not fair, it's raining again." "Oh, so and then you start the conversation. So it's almost impossible for me to give you the 1, 2, 3 on how you do it. So that's why I'm trying to give you the general. First of all, listen, and then engage. Talk to your child. Do not ignore the child. Do not compare the child. Do not criticize the child, and do not be judgmental. So if the child's not prepared to talk immediately, then just accept that and talk about whatever he wants to talk about, the weather, whatever. And what you're doing is you're formulating a dialogue with your child. And because what the child wants to do, that part of your mind, it wants to begin to trust you and to know that you will listen and you won't shut the door and ignore it like you've been doing.
Yeah, I think from personal experience, the child will talk normally when it wants to talk, and it can be, when you're more tired or when you're under pressure, and then the kind of beliefs and fears of the child come much more readily to the surface. That may or may not be the time when you want to have a long conversation, but as David said, listening and acknowledging is so very important and the vital first step. The other way, again,
because you're building trust.
Because you're building trust and the child doesn't trust you. You've got to develop that trust relationship before you can start to unpack and resolve things and educate the child. But what has worked for me in the past is doing sort of like morning papers or writing a diary or automatic writing, where me as the adult, Alex, takes the lead. So rather than the child just popping up as and whenever, which is okay as well, but I take the lead, and as David says, you sit down, whether it's first thing in the morning or last thing in the evening or whenever you've got a break, and say, okay, so is there anything you'd like to talk about today? Or what's the matter now? Or, what? And they may give you something, they may not. And for me, I've kind of just written some things down, some notes or no notes. But then it's almost like I'm setting aside time every day to do that practice. And I guess that's a more proactive way of doing it. Some people can do it through meditation.
Some people can do it through meditation. Some people can do it riding their bike, swimming, walking in the park. The thing is, it's a very powerful one that Alex says, and some people call it journaling or writing a diary or doing the morning papers. The thing to remember is to deal with the issues that the child gives you. So here's where a lot of people go wrong. They will write it down, but they won't deal with it. They avoid it. And then you lose trust between that part of your mind that we call the child and who you are. So that breaks down. It's not enough just to listen to it and say, yes, I've heard what you've said now. Thanks. Let's get on with our lives. Because you haven't, she or he is still holding the problem. You've got to say, right, that's the problem. Let's now try and deal with it. And really, that's what we're here for. Let's put it into our Facebook community, or let's book a session, or let's do something. Let's resolve this issue if you can't solve it. And so that's the key. All of these techniques, that's why it's kind of difficult to give you a belt and braces. Do 1, 2, 3, and this will work, because everybody is slightly different. So we have to give you the overall view. Listen, communicate, and then address the problem. So there's 3, isn't it? Listen, communicate, address. Listen to what the child is saying, communicate, make sure you're clear and you understand, and then try and resolve or deal with the issue.
And also don't overpromise.
No, that's a lie.
Don't overpromise, and don't also expect that you're going to have all the answers and that you can sort the whole thing out in one go, because I think it's almost like a journey for the two of you together for the first time. You're coming together in the oneness for the first time and both finding your way. But it's just keeping that daily communication up.
Crikey, Alex, that's such a powerful teaching. Never Never, never lie to your inner child. So if she brings you or he brings you a problem you can't solve, say to her, I don't know the answer to that, but I will find out for you, or we will find out together.
Yeah.
Because what you're doing, instead of creating a separation between you and your child, you're bringing her and them together as a oneness. And this is what Taoism is about. This is the basis of this spiritual teaching, is about the oneness, no separation. So what Alex has just said is so powerful, so important. It's okay. You don't have to be perfect. It's okay to say, I don't know the answer to that. But then what you can do is to affirm that you will make efforts to find the answer.
Yeah.
Thank you, Alex. That's really powerful.
Because I think some people, and the lady who asked this question, it's absolutely fantastic that she, first of all, acknowledges she's got an inner child. She positively wants to help reach out and communicate with the inner child. But when we do it for the first time, it's like we can't be super duper parents. We've also got to learn the parenting skills, and go easy on ourselves and see it for the adult part of us, to see that, it's an exercise. We want to help the child. This is going to be a positive exercise for the inner child, but it's also a positive exercise for us for the first time, taking that self-responsibility and learning to show the child the way rather than expecting other people to guide you.
Okay, and I'd like to say something else as well, because this is very important. Don't be surprised in the first few times you contact and speak to the inner child about these powerful incidences that she will create intense red light feelings. And this is where you've got to learn to drop your shoulders, take a breath. Do not respond to the feelings. Keep on subject, because that's what you've done in the past. You've kind of shut the feelings away. You've got to go keep on talking. So remember, you create those red light feelings. You are not the victim. Doesn't matter how intense they are, keep on going towards them until it's solved. Then they will go away. So don't give up because the feelings are strong.
Great. So the overall life lesson for this lady is, what would you say, David?
Listen to your child in whatever way that the child is communicating to you, either through what Alex says, morning papers, through meditation, through swimming, through riding your bike, walking, whatever, or sitting quietly as in a meditation. Acknowledge what she's saying. Try and get to the root of what she's saying, because at the beginning, she'll almost dump everything onto you. Yeah, and this is wrong, and that's wrong, and that was wrong, and we should have done better at school, and we failed the exam, and we had this, and we done that. And you just try and work through those. I call it the froth. You work through the froth, then you'll get down to the core. Normally 3-4 issues at the core. Then you resolve those core issues. So listen, acknowledge, resolve.
Brilliant. Thank you, David. And if this topic issue particularly resonates or is important to you, please post your comments and questions below, and we'll be very happy to answer them for you.